Perfect.
awesome. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Roberto.
I can see now. Thank you so much, everyone. It's such a pleasure to see you from here, to hear all these amazing stories. Can you confirm if I'm audible and if you can share, you can see my screen?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see the screen.
That's
Thank you.
perfect. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, allow me to present myself. I'm Roberto Juarez, Roberto Hernandez Juarez, all from Mexico City, aka Citizen for Sustainability. That's my handle on Instagram and all social medias. And I'm gonna share a little bit of my activism, what I do, what we have done here in Mexico City, and I'm talking plural because it's not about just one single person, but it's a collective actions. Like youth and integration and organization, and just like FXP Climate, this beautiful network around the world, what's happening on climate change. So, yeah, that's those are the three versions of me. My little baby me, my little me that's kind of the climate activist, and the also kind of Roberto that do this networking and a lot of integration between youth, not only in Mexico but in Latin America and globally. Uh, you know, kind of reflecting what we shared and what we heard today about the climate action and how collective it's really that tool and that big transformative um, power that we all have. So who is he? I made this little presentation kind of funny. So there's kind of three different versions, types of me. There's the SDG climate activist, kind of a little bit of what I do. I do a lot of climate activism on social media, on on the legal field, on the legal reforms, and a lot of legislation. But I'm also a climate researcher. I do a research on climate change. I have different publications with the University of Oxford on my research field, which is legal. I talk about a culture and social reset and how this is impacting all legislation, all countries, and how we need to make the legal reforms to adjust the climate emergency and reduce the inequality gap. And I'm also a content creator. I love to create content on TikTok. I'm part of the third generation of creators on TikTok for climate change and sustainability, which I definitely invite you to create content, to really use the tools that we have, with either social media or Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever it is. Definitely, we need to spread more content on climate change because one of the problems that we're facing right now is climate change deniers and extreme right groups. And I don't want to say that, yeah, but a lot of people that are negationism and are misinformation and creating disinformation around climate change. And those groups are really organized. Those groups are really coordinated, and uh, we're fighting them on social media as a youth generation. So I love the fact that we, the youth, or specifically the younger generation, have a different sense of humor on how they perceive, disinformation, etc. So, kind of the three things that I mostly do. And yeah, where do I come from? And this is kind of a joke that I received once from a friend from the US when I told her where I was from. So I put it here. If anyone can guess where I'm from, I'm all the way from the city of the hot sauce in Mexico, exactly. So I give you 3 seconds to think which city I'm from, which state I'm from. No, can you guess? Not. So the answer is Tabasco. I'm all the way from the city of the hot sauce, the Tabasco sauce, which is not actually Mexican. It's from the U.S. But yeah, I'm from Tabasco. Tabasco is a south state located in Mexico. Here, as you can see it in case you don't know the geography of Mexico. Tabasco is in the south part of Mexico. It's called the Eden because it's so green, it's so rich in so many history and fruits, vegetables, biodiversity. And through history, it's really interesting because Tabasco is one of the states that originated cacao or cocoa and also vanilla, all vanilla and cacao and corn. Most of the varieties that we have worldwide are from Tabasco, and through migration, and we can start using some concepts as capitalism and colonialism through the colonization process that we have in Mexico with Spain, etc. That's how these ingredients migrate, and that's how the supply chains that we have, right now around the world. Like Africa didn't have cocoa, for example, or Switzerland does not produce cocoa. But it's really interesting to see this and mention it and how this affects climate change and how I'm gonna share the vision of Tabasco. This is like a most graphical image of what Tabasco is in the south part of Mexico. It's really pretty well known because we have trees that uh, produce flowers for these flower trees, yellow, um, pink, and orange. It's really famous because of that. But we also famous because not only cocoa and vanilla, as I said, but because we have faced climate change really massively. Tabasco is a state that has faced climate change and floods almost every year. It's kind of geographically because it's the way that the land is formed, um, but it's also you can see it here in the middle of the image because Tabasco is a petro state. It's so rich that it has so much petroleum. It's the state that produces most petroleum in Mexico. You know that we are a petro country, and yeah, it's kind of to contrast this vision is of this image, how rich can be a country or a state, but also how the effects of climate change is affecting everyone, and specifically the most vulnerable people, and how this, vision towards this little kid that I showed you at the beginning of the conversation, this little version of myself grew up in this state, suffering from the effects of climate change and perceiving, and this is a quote that I love to mention, that the night does no longer exist in Tabasco because of the flames burning fuel 24/7 365. So of course that impact that little child, it impacted me in the way like, oh, what is happening here? I'm questioning myself a lot and questioning, why do we get flood every year? Even in my house, it was kind of weird. If you ever go to Tabasco, first of all, you're really welcome. If you ever come to Mexico and Tabasco specifically, you're more than welcome. But you can see how geographically and how people change architecture to, resist this flooding, and houses are really built completely different, from a traditional house. So it's kind of that resilience and mitigation that we have in climate change. But this is not only happening in Tabasco, it's not only happening in Mexico. You can see it also happening in the United States, in Canada, in Germany, in China. Climate change is happening already around the world, and I think it's so important for us as the younger generation to realize and to change that perspective, that how it's affecting us as uh, someone shared before, is how it's affecting us individually, and how this is storytelling, how this vision is so unique and so powerful to embrace other people and to really connect. It's like, oh, we're not that different. Although we might speak a different language, although we might have some geographical differences, we are suffering climate change, and this narrative is a growing narrative that is so important, to change and to take action on. Um, so it's kind of this question that what's happening in the global south. We can see that there's flooding happening in the global south. There's a huge migration coming in, happening in the global south towards the north, which is historically, but is growing through the effects of climate change, desertification, extreme weather, acidification of the oceans, etc., etc. You name it, and of course, this is affecting everyone, and specifically the younger generation. So, if I want to share something, is what's happening in the global south. Of course, climate change, but it's also um, something. So, I put this little quiz here. If you can guess what's happening in the global south, if you can complete the word, think, take some seconds.
Don't everyone want to say it? Carbon emissions.
Yes, I love it. In a hint, it's the youth power, and I think it's exactly that. Climate action. It's the power that we, the youth, have, and it's not only happening, devastation, and it's not only happening in a narrative of victims and, oh, what's happening. No, it's really an opportunity for us to really change the supply chain, the legal system, and everything that has been oppressing youth and people, humans in general. And that's the climate action, which also transfers to climate justice. So it's what's happening around the world. And I love they mentioned the conference of the parties, the COPs, and the mark of the UNCC and United Nations, how there's this new generation of people working in new chapters globally towards climate justice and really transform, as I said, societies, because the model that we have, it proves that it's not working anymore. We don't want, well, not everyone. And I don't think it's either sustainable. Uh, but the vision that was told to us when we were children, now, oh, you want to become a rapper and have this big mansion and have a Bentley and have a Rolls Royce, it's no longer sustainable. If I think you're from the U.S., but you could see this footage, these videos of Drake House being floated just like some weeks ago, or it's happening everywhere and it's affecting everyone. Although it's not affecting on the same way, that's why climate action and climate justice is so important because it reflects how this inequality gap is persisting and is still in our societies, and how although the climate effects will increase this inequality gap, we need to reduce it so we kind of save more people from the climate effects and mitigate those effects. If one of the things also the COVID-19, the pandemic showed humanity show us is that progress can be lost. That anything that we achieve, and sometimes I think this is a mistake, and I love to mention when I talk with youth, is that we kind of perceive that the progress is forever, or progress, anything that we have achieved, it's going to be there, it's going to stay there. And climate change is that thing that's saying, no, I come and completely disturb and change and destruct everything, from our societies, from the supply chain talking on companies and businesses, um, to everything that we have built, and even that's progress and human rights. So it's so important that we advocate not only for climate action, for climate justice, but for basic human rights, because this is going to change completely. This is not a negative narrative. I don't want to stress you or climate or cause you climate anxiety or climate depression, but it's a reality. I know sometimes we need this dose of reality. So yeah, and I'm gonna finish with this image. Kind of the climate action that we have done here in Mexico. In the first image, it's the kind of events we need to spread the word. We need to create more youth involvement. And but what a best way to start with your friends, to start with your current circle or your closest circle of friends. The first image here on um, at the top of the presentation is when we organized Youth Day during the pandemic, if I'm not wrong. And there's not a lot of people really advocating for the Sustainable Development Goals. So one of the strategies that we do is to take the Sustainable Development Goals everywhere, so it's visible, so it's there, and we can detonate the conversation. Another picture here is with the Global Shapers, the World Economic Forum Network, which is amazing. There's a lot of opportunities too that you might um, get to for either G20 or for the forum, the Davos Forum. If you want to make research, if you have a project, and if you want funding, definitely the World Economic Forum and the Global Shapers in your state, you will find a network, definitely. One of the things we do is also to work with companies, because sometimes there's a conversation that says, oh, let's not involve the businesses, let's not involve Coca-Cola, Nestle, and all the big companies and multinationals. But I think it's really important to involve them and to actually force them to pay back and to have this mitigation. Either it's funding climate activists, either it's funding, or projects and or ideas, because that's, as I said, what's happening in global south. It's the climate action to get the funds, to get the movement, and to get those networking for climate action. And one of the latest things that we have done, and I said I talk we because it's plural. I created an organization called Youth Building the Future Global, which I also invite you to check on social media and the webpage, which is a network of youth also working on climate change and human rights basically around the world. And we have missions and we have different ambassadors around the world doing incredible things, and creating these legal reforms on climate justice, climate energy transition, mitigation, etc. So yeah, also as I said, to create this network and really believe that there is no boundaries right now. the networking and everything that we have on social media is so powerful. So definitely check that out. And one of the last things which I'm gonna close, I run for the Senate. I'm 25 years old, although I don't look or I don't look for you. I'm 25 years old and I run for the Senate in Mexico as the youngest person, not only in Mexico, but in the whole Latin America, because Mexico is the one of the states that have the lowest age to be a senator or a congressman for the United States, I believe. So it was such a beautiful experience to get to travel the whole country, the 32 states, to get to know thousands and thousands of people, and really get kind of these images on the deputy chambers to really believe that you can do anything. It's not easy. It's gonna be really hard. There's so many difficulties. There's a lot of adult centrism that they don't believe in youth. They don't believe we have the power. They do believe we need to look different or to look like them, and it's kind of the narrative. We don't have to look like them. We don't. We can be so different. We can be dissidents. Either you're LGBTQ, you are a migrant, you are da 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 da. You can do it. So it's kind of to share that story. My activism is not perfect. I'm not perfect. There's so many things that we can do, and I think it's the only way to do it and to achieve the climate action that we need. It's together. So um, youth leads the way, and I close with this. It's you, the one, each individual, the one that leads the way and that show how we can do things geographically in so many different ways. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Roberto. That was wonderful. So now that we've got to travel to different parts of the world, we would love to hear from students in the classroom. Any questions